Maruti Suzuki's People Technology presents Suzuki Connect with Navigate to Car and many other features.
Watch more, feel more. Dell.
Who would have thought that essentially is the theme, isn't it? If you're an Indian cricket fan going into this T20 World Cup, who would have thought that going into match number 33, as we now approach the business end of the Super 12s, that when Afghanistan and India are about to play their game at Abu Dhabi, Afghanistan would be second from top and India would be second from bottom in the points table on Group 2. So that's just the kind of World Cup we've had. Will Afghanistan cause one of the great upsets? Is it even an upset, the sort of form India are in? Can India bounce back, keep their hopes alive? And how do they react after what was one of the most disappointing performances from an Indian team in a World Cup, as they did against New Zealand? Questions that Tom Moody and Ajit Agarkar will have to answer on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. It doesn't get any easier, Ajit, does it? For a Virat Kohli who just cannot seem to win a toss. I thought a change in venue might bring a change in fortunes. And the one team that likes to bat first and set a score has decided, nope, we're going to have a bowl and they're going to bat first. That's what Afghanistan are doing. Ajit, doesn't get any easier. All right, I'm going to come to Ajit Agarkar in just a second. Tom Moody, what do we say about this Indian team? What do you think they're feeling right now?
Nothing, but I think look, India will be looking to just play well. I think if India play well, the problem is India batted well enough. Whether you bat first or not, it doesn't really matter if you don't do it well. So, firstly, if they put the runs on the board, Afghanistan will be under pressure. India is a better team on paper, and they've basically got to go out and show it tonight. Maybe an important toss. We'll find out in due course. But if they bat well, it may not turn out to be an important toss.
Okay, I'm going to get Ajit Agarkar's picture just in sync with his audio. We got that audio just fine. But that batting unit, we saw them almost under pressure, Tom, against New Zealand. And they're going to have to bat first again here. If you were in that dressing room, how would you be assessing that situation with the batters in India?
Well, certainly from a batting point of view, it's not a bad thing that they're batting first because it enables them to get into the game as quick as possible, put behind a disappointing game against New Zealand, put it well behind them and focus on what they can do. And we all know what India are capable of doing with the bat. So, I think, the sooner they get out there as a batting group to rectify, which has been a little bit of a mystery, sort of their form and the direction they've been going as a unit, the better, really. The one downside to the toss is obviously India are probably going to have to field and bowl when there's, some heavy dew, because from all accounts at this venue, that has been a challenge.
Yeah, that is exactly what Mohammad Nabi has also said at the toss, which is the reason that Mujibur Rahman was assuming fit and yet not playing because of the dew. We just have to confirm that, but that's what I gathered from Nabi's words at the toss. But changes you think were expected from India. When you're losing, you change. India have changed things, Ajit. Ishan Kishan is out. Surya Kumar Yadav is back. You think he was the preferred option, but for that back spasm that kept him out of the game against New Zealand. And there's a change among the spinners. Varun goes out. Ashwin comes in. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean Surya Kumar Yadav is a good change. Obviously, he was the preferred choice. He bats in the middle as well. Fortunately, because of that, now Rohit goes to the top. Uh, with regards to Ashwin, I mean it's an interesting call. I mean, look, he's got lots of experience off spin as well. Jadeja and him ball going the other way. I'm not sure. I mean, there are a couple of left-handers in that Afghanistan lineup who bat aggressively. So that might be a matchup against them. And also he'll probably in all probability bowl with the new ball, which he does so well. So it's not a bad change. India looking after two games or third game now. India still looking to find their best 11, which is always a bit of a worry and tells you that they haven't been playing well enough.
We've got to almost look at these changes one by one, almost in isolation, because the Ashwin story is a different one. Let's talk about that. Then I'll come to India's batting. I spoke to some friends randomly this morning who said Ashwin should have started the tournament, and there seems to be that sort of at least perception around Ashwin, Tom, the experienced off spin and whatnot. We look at his numbers from the IPLs. Tells you the story you need to know. Is Ashwin still the same bowler that was formidable in T20 cricket? You look at him in 2021, that strike rate's only on its way up. In 2021 in particular at 38.3, but did have some injuries concerns in the first half. Where do you stand on Ashwin and what value he brings to this Indian T20 side? Should he have started, and is this the right call to include him for this game?
I think hindsight is is a wonderful thing, isn't it? I think it's an easy thing to say that he should have started the tournament for whatever reasons, but I don't think India's performance to this point has been down to their bowling and Chakravarti in particular. I believe that was the right choice to select him to begin with, because I felt he was bowling and was the biggest threat between the two of them as a bowler, regardless of left or right hand combinations that you face. So I don't think that was a mistake. I think the selection for Ashwin in this game is probably more to do with India feeling they need to draw on his experience. They need some more experience, a calm head out in the middle during a difficult time where they need to reset sail and get on with their campaign in a hurry.
All right. I'm just trying to think, Ajit, if there was a batting opposition, or at least a type of batting opposition that you would have liked Varun to play, would have been the less experienced ones. Afghanistan are not as less experienced as say Scotland or Namibia would be. But you think this would have been a game for Chakravarti more than others? All right, Ajit, I just need you to unmute yourself. Sorry, I can see you well. I just can't hear you. Trouble there? We'll fix that. We'll fix that. You want to get rid of those AirPods? Yeah. My AirPods don't act all the time as well. We need some sponsors here from the right places. But Ajit, do you have me? Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay, we'll just wait to get that fixed. But Tom, if you could just pick up from that same question, whether this would have been a game Chakravarti would have wanted to play more than perhaps the others.
Absolutely. He's still relatively unseen in world cricket. Yes, we've seen him for a couple of years in the IPL, and he's done very, very well. If anything, he's growing in stature as a bowler. So there's a lot of teams and a lot of batsmen that haven't come across him yet. Yeah, they'll see all the video footage and do their prep like most teams do with all various bowlers that are relatively new. But it's a different story when you're having to face someone that's got that element of mystery to them. Yes, Afghanistan face mystery bowling in their net sessions every practice session, because they've got a squad full of very fine spin bowlers. But again, I think Varun brings something quite unique. And as I pointed out, I think he's come into this tournament in some good form.
Yeah, and as Tom's pointed out as well, Ajit, that it's not like we can say the bowlers lost India those first two games. All right, Ajit's going to be back for continuing to champion the cause for India's bowlers. But until then, perhaps we'll focus on the batting change. That makes Virat Kohli's life easier then, Tom, to not have the temptation to bat Ishan Kishan up top. We were all a bit confused about that decision. So everyone just slots back to where they know how to bat.
I would have thought that's going to be the case, that everyone just falls back into line. The Ishan Kishan selection was the right selection. We all thought at the time, but the actual positioning of his role in the side was confusing to us all. So I think with Surya Kumar Yadav coming back into the side, he's ideally fitted into that middle role where he has been quite dynamic over the last 12 months.
Okay, I'm just going to see if I've got Ajit back with us. Fingers crossed that I do. All right, Ajit's back. Ajit, you got me loud and clear?
Yeah, looks. I mean, I could hear you. It must be all these fancy new gadgets.
I know. We're fancy people, aren't we? Tom's simpler than you and me. But anyway, let's go back. Let's go back to the conversation. Where Tom made the point. It's not like we can say India's bowlers lost them those first two games. So is the bowling change perhaps a bit unfair on Varun?
Yeah, I mean, I've been there, so I know how it works. Generally, the batting fails and the bowlers get changed. So it's. I mean, you've got to feel a little bit for Chakravarti. You made the point. Perhaps they wanted to play a mystery guy like him. It was and he didn't do anything wrong in the two games. In fact, Virat Kohli trusted him to bowl the 4 overs against New Zealand, hoping to pick a wicket. So tells you that he obviously rates him. But like Tom said before, they've gone to Ashwin for the experience, or just know-how in big matches, and he's got heaps of them. So whilst I'm not convinced of the move, I mean, you are still getting a seasoned campaigner, experienced player in. So, and India would be hoping that he bowls well. He will certainly bowl with the new ball, with the makeup that the Indian bowling attack has. Hopefully for India's sake it works. I'm not convinced of the move though.
Yep, fair enough. And there is due, as Nabi points out, as we've come to see at this venue. So he's got that extra challenge, Desar Ashwin. But full circle as Jadeja and Ashwin play for India in a World Cup game after you thought India were taking a different direction after the ICC Champions Trophy in 2017. Here they are now together. But we'll talk about India's batting, right? They're going to be batting first. That's been the biggest concern, the biggest disappointment, you think, from an Indian point of view this tournament. One of the things has also been the power game against spin, which is an interesting one. If we try and bring up some numbers, you'd see India's batters don't have a great record anyway against Rashid Khan. That's in isolation for just today's game. No strike rates that really stand out, but most batters in the world don't have great numbers against Rashid Khan. This conversation goes beyond that, Tom and Ajit. Seems to be some sort of concern about India's ability to take on spin outside of the power play. And Ishan Kishan, we thought Ajit could have been the answer to that. Surya Kumar Yadav is back, but now is this becoming a real concern for you, how India take on spin bowling?
Yeah, I mean, look, Rashid Khan is an exception. I don't think many teams have been able to take on Rashid Khan anyway. But yeah, India don't want to get stuck once that power play is over. His overs become critical. So if he is bowling well, which he normally does, and they can't get him away, they've got to look at those runs from somebody else. And for that, they will have wickets. They'll need to have wickets in hand. Surya Kumar Yadav plays spin well. So I don't think getting him back for Ishan Kishan necessarily is a bad move, and he might actually make the difference in the middle overs if he is batting against spin at that point. So I quite like that change, and because he's fit now. But it is not going to be easy against the Afghanistan spinners, and India know that not only they have to win, but ideally have to win well too. So they will need some runs.
Yeah, let's talk about the big boys. You like your numbers, Tom Moody? I'm sure you've had these thrown up to you before you play a Mumbai Indians or an RCB, because Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma are the center of are the focus of our conversation when it comes to how they play spin. Let's see the numbers one by one. Rohit Sharma against spin in T20s. Focus on the strike rates. Does not like to start as much against spin. 10 dismissals in the power play. And you could see even between 7 and 15, it's not like he goes at a rate of knots. 138 you take, but there are still 11 dismissals in 26 innings there. Virat Kohli also is a bit of a concern. In particular, doesn't like to start against spin. Santner and Sodhi really tied him into a bit of a web in the last game. And as we look at his numbers, strike rate of just over 100, Tom, against spin since 2020. This is in T20 eyes. And against pace, it's a lot better. There are some more numbers I'll come up, but just consuming all of this, do you think India have a problem with two of their best players not being able to play the power game against spin?
Yeah, look, that is a concern, and I think you'll find that the trend, not only with these players but with any player in those middle overs, have had their challenges against spin, and that's one of the reasons why, which was a surprise to us all when T20 first came about, that spinners have played a significant role. We all thought when T20 started, spin was going to be, become extinct because it was going to be nearly impossible for them to compete in the short form that 20 overs is. But they've become the most important bowlers of any team makeup, particularly spin that's got a bit of mystery to it. So those middle overs, you do see a little bit of a dip. But what those numbers tell me more than anything is that the lack of intent and the concern around losing your wicket against spin bowling. To me, if you can't have the right matchup and hit boundaries, you have to be able to hit ones, and that's where a lot of batsmen, and it may be the case with the two we're talking about in Kohli and Rohit Sharma, in that they're consuming too many dot balls and waiting for that boundary. And the other critical thing around spin is once you have the right matchup, if it's an off spinner, if you're a right-hand batter, or if it's a left-arm spinner, if you're a left-hand batter, or if it just is any particular spinner that you fancy, you must press the button. You must go and go hard and try to take two boundaries out of his 6 balls that he's delivering. You can't not hesitate, because at the end of the day, that bowler may only have that one over against you, but you've got to make sure it's a decent over that's a 12-plus over.
There are a lot of things I want to pick up from that answer for Tom, but the first thing I'll start with is this inability to even get singles, which Kohli did have in the last game against New Zealand, Ajit. And it seems so odd because 2 or 3 years back, we're thinking of Kohli as this white ball beast who will always get singles. Has something changed in the last 2 years? We know that he's not been at his fluent best in other formats. Has that somewhere crept into his T20 game? Have other things just changed for you from what you've observed?
It perhaps has, but in the IPL, it didn't look like he was getting stuck as much. Even if he didn't play the big innings, it looked like he was rotating the strike. Last game was you know didn't look good at all because of how perhaps he was a little bit too conservative with what happened against Pakistan. Too many wickets lost and didn't want to. Uh, but still, I mean, like Tom said, you've at least got to rotate strike. You're putting pressure not on yourself, but the guy at the other end, guys to follow, and it is going to be a critical part again this in this game in the middle in particular, where they will have to, if not hit the big shots, rotate. Hopefully, it's a really good pitch to bat on, and then that helps. But if it isn't, and the pitches have had some help for the bowlers, it is going to be hard work. So India needs to rotate strike and maybe not aim too high. Aim at a what 160, 165 somewhere there, and if they get more, they get more. But it is a little bit of a concern, but we'll have to see if it's a pattern or not.
I think the IPL numbers from this season do back me up on that too, in terms of Kohli strike rate in the power play, Tom, and outside. Anything that you observed on whether Virat's game is changed when it comes to playing spin or even rotating the
I
strike?
think I think when we just look at this tournament, the World Cup in isolation, it's always difficult for a middle order when you lose early wickets as well. You naturally have to reset as a batting unit, and when you're doing that resetting, you do consume dot balls, but not to the extent that we saw against New Zealand. That was just that was an incredible batting performance to witness because it was so unlike India. That they were nearly suffocating under their own pressure, where normally they play with this incredible freedom that we all admire, and we just look back and think, wow, how have they just got the ability and the gamesmanship to be able to just take on the attack the way they do. But that certainly seemed to have vanished in the last game against New Zealand. They need to get back that real mystique about their batting, that the rest of the world look and just admire and think, wow, the way that they've just dealt with that attack or that particular over is mind blowing. We've seen we've seen it with a couple of other teams, but we haven't seen it from India so far in this World Cup, and maybe today is the day that they turn it on.
The other
The
thing,
other
Ronak,
thing, yes,
just,
Ajit, please.
just to add to that, I think Virat Kohli made the point that we were not brave enough. I think it's probably time for India to be a
Yes.
little bit braver.
Yeah.
I just you haven't seen this Indian team sort of doubt themselves so much. They've played freely most of the times, even in ICC tournaments, even though they've not won under Virat. They've played freely, and somewhere maybe the fear of losing is playing at the back of their minds. There's a bit more pressure. If they can free themselves of that, I think we'll see the quality and the ability that some of the batters have.
I'll
Yeah,
just
that was
add
just the
something
next
to
thing I
that
was
as
going to
well.
ask you. Yes,
Yeah, just
please,
add
Tom.
something to that as well, and that there's a big difference between playing an IPL tournament and a World Cup, and that is you can lose matches in IPL tournaments and still become champions, where in ICC tournaments, World Cups, and other tournaments, you start losing matches, you're not qualifying. It all happens in a hurry. So each and every game has a significant importance to it. And, we can't also ignore the fact that India have stepped into this tournament with playing a couple of tough teams up front. They've played Pakistan, which is always a tough, team to play because you don't know, which Pakistan's going to turn up. We're seeing the AAA version at the moment of Pakistan, and they're playing brilliant cricket. And New Zealand have got a remarkable record in ICC events. So they're two tough games to confront first up. So they haven't had an easy entry into this tournament. So it set them right onto the back foot.
And it's a T20 World Cup after 5 years, you'd think. India, Pakistan, New Zealand all played each other initially. So they all had the big fixtures up front. But are we learning something about this Indian side, Ajit, as talented as they are, that perhaps the pressure of an ICC event, the occasion has even gotten to them in spite of how celebrated and whatnot there?
Yeah, I'm sure it has gotten to them. I think I mean, you shouldn't give it as an excuse, but there's some sort of fatigue there as well. And in a high pressure
Yes.
tournament, like Tom said, there are no second chances in a World Cup. If you if you lose a couple of games, there are no comebacks like the IPL where there are 14 games. So that adds to the pressure as well. But in this particular World Cup, they've certainly let the pressure get to them. Generally, they've found a way to win before, particularly in the group stage. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened for them, and it can happen. Can they turn it around? They've still got an outside chance. They can do what's in their control is to try and win these games and win well, and then hope the other results go their way. So at least we'll get to see the quality that they have if they play well enough.
Hmm. Yeah, it can happen should be the theme actually. Just tell everybody else who's almost gone like they've lost everything in the world, and it's only a tournament, and it can happen. Good teams can lose to two good teams. Okay, let's bring up some numbers, shall we? For Afghanistan, the other team in this, and funny enough, their chances for the semi-finals are a lot more realistic than India's. It's perhaps even in their hand. If they beat New Zealand, they could even beat India today. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a different makeup to the semi-final lineup. What we do know about this Afghan side is that they go hard. Something that we have seen. We'll just bring up the numbers for you as well. Uh, in Hazratullah Zazai will probably have his chance in the second innings, but we know that this is someone who goes hard at the top. We also have the highest strike rate in the death overs, and you've got the likes of Nabi and Zadran in it. So Zaza is right up there among the top 10 teams. Nabi's had a pretty good tournament so far. They'll have the responsibility of a chase, of course, today. And we do know that they are a threat. Rashid Khan's a threat more than anybody else. We look at the most T20 wickets, and Rashid Khan sits pretty at the top of that pile, as you would have come to expect. 399 wickets for Afghanistan, that is. And he continues to eye what would be a 400th T20 wicket. They're also without Asghar Afghan, who, in a rare thing that you see these days, announced a mid-tournament retirement, and they're going to have Sharafuddin Ashraf, who's going to be playing in place of him. So keep an eye out for Sharafuddin Ashraf. Right, let's talk about a number. We are at Abu Dhabi. It's a different ground. Thoughts, Tom, on what India would be eyeing over here? There are many ways to get to 160, as England and Josh Butler have shown us. Is that the number?
Yeah, look, I think they're going to have to get a relatively high number. You know, at the end of the day, they've got a couple of considerations. Number one, they've got to win the game, but they also need to be able to win it, you know, with a good margin. So now they're in a position where they're having to set that number. You know, I would have thought they'll be looking for, you know, north of 170.
Ajit?
Yeah, I think they'll have to get about 180. Uh, not because that is the score that they'll be able to defend. They might be able to defend even 150, but they'll have to get as many runs as they can, try and better their net run rate. If it comes to that, at least give themselves a chance because uh, that's the only way. I mean, they'll of course the results could go their way, and New Zealand could lose their next game and whatnot. But you know, I think they'll need to get about a 180. We haven't seen too many of those in this tournament, so they're going to have to bat really well.
Let's ask Coach Moody now, who said that perhaps fear of getting out is a problem. Ajit reminds us of Virat Kohli's words, they got to be more brave. So if you had to talk to Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, 700 T20s between them, Tom, and perhaps remind them that they don't need to worry too much about their wicket, how exactly would you put those words?
Oh, look, I'd really simplify it and ask them to just compartmentalize just every ball and deal with every ball with real intent. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry about what it should look like at the end of the over or the end of the 10 over mark or at the end of the innings. Just that very ball that you're facing, just play with it with as much positive intent as you possibly can. And look to dominate, control the game, be the conductor out there, be the person that is running the game instead of the game being run by them, by the opposition.
Would you like to see sort of an Indian top order take control from the beginning, Ajit, or would you like to see the way England and even there's one other team the other day, I think New Zealand today, perhaps to a degree, bat out the first 5 or 6 and then look to go big later? Pakistan yesterday. Would you like to see that approach or the one which India's openers go hard?
I think it just depends on the day, but seems like that's the template in these conditions. You take a little bit of time, even if you start a bit slowly. if you have wickets in hand, it only gets easier. We saw last night in Abu Dhabi, runs could be scored on that pitch. There was a bit of pace and bounce, and there was, especially in the evening game, there were runs there for the taking, but the bounce was true. So, uh, look, they could get off to a flyer, KL Rahul and Rohit, but even if they don't, as long as they're out there, I don't think it'll be a worry because they have enough ability to cover it up. Even though Afghanistan have bowled well and they've got some good bowlers in their lineup, I don't think that'll be a worry. So it'll just depend sometimes on the feel of the batsman and how quickly he can get out the blocks. But even if it doesn't, as long as India keep wickets in hand, I don't think it'll be a big worry.
Okay, they need something big, right? India need a performance. India need points. India need their net run rate. Let's see if today is the day. Tom Moody, Ajit Agarkar, thank you very much. Pick up the chat at half time. For the third time, India will bat first, and we will see if they bat better than they did against Pakistan and New Zealand. You certainly hope so, because this is a talented team that has seriously underperformed so far. Let's see how Afghanistan go. They're on a bit of a high, and we'll pick up the chat at a halftime show on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout powered by Dell.
Maruti Suzuki's People Technology presents Suzuki Connect with Navigate to Car and many other features.
Watch more. Feel more. Dell.